the theme from Schindler's List. Ladies and gentlemen, Benjamin Shapiro.
I was watching Mark Dice earlier today, and he did another very fascinating, very informative, well-researched, well-put-together video with lots of clips again, like he did yesterday. I'm speaking to you, by the way, I suppose I should say, from 2024, Saturday, May the 4th. Yeah, I guess Elon Musk might be one of those people who might make one of those May the 4th type jokes. Anyhow, Mark Dice mentioned something during his video, which I had never heard of. I did not know that Ben Shapiro had brought Elon Musk on a journey over to Europe. And he put it in very plain terms. He said this as though it was a fact. And I suppose I'd better just come out with it and say it. I'm quoting what Mark Dice said now, but Mark Dice seemed to be sort of stating as something that had already been established on the public record, not that it was just his opinion. He said that Ben Shapiro is Elon Musk's handler. I thought that was very fascinating, very strange, very interesting that he would say that. So he quoted an article, or he referenced an article. It may not have exactly been the Associated Press, but it was perhaps another newspaper which was itself more or less copy-pasting the Associated Press. So I searched for the title and came up with the Associated Press article. So I figured, look, if that's the one that's disseminated, I might as well go straight to that. But I don't even know if I can read out this Associated Press article. I mean, maybe I'll give you the headline here. It says, Elon Musk visits. And maybe I won't say that word just yet. It's on the screen. After uproar over, and then maybe I won't say that word, messages on X. So that's the headline. Let's see how far we get in the first page. Elon Musk, who has been accused of allowing, and then I'm going to have to skip a word, messages on his social media platform X, visited the site of the, and I'm going to have to skip that hyphenated word, and the next word, and maybe I can say camp, on Monday. And that was January the 22nd of 2024. Now, when that happened, I don't know what else was in the news or what I was paying attention to or where I was or what I was doing. But that skipped me by. I didn't hear about this at all. So when Mark Dice mentioned it today, I was like, what? Better look into this. And so if you haven't heard of it, well, I guess we'll learn together. But yeah, I kind of really can't read that article just now. I think I'm going to have to leave that till later and see what we can do. Basically what I'm saying is I might have to read it on a live stream, maybe on another platform. Now, a lot of people go, oh, Mark Dice, you don't want to trust him. He's really Mark Dice, which is a very unusual name to my ears anyway. I've never heard of anybody else called Dice. And a lot of people I've heard say, well, that implies that he's not who he says he is. He's misrepresenting himself. But, I mean, a lot of people use pseudonyms, pen names, for, I guess, lots of different reasons. Not necessarily that they are trying to hide something about themselves from you, but maybe from people who would want to shut them down, perhaps. Or maybe a lot of the times it's better just to kind of retain some bridge, some firewall, some air gap between you, the person who creates some journalism online, and you, the person who would like to live then some kind of normal-ish life in wherever it is that you live. When you kind of say, right, I'm off the clock now, I want to just go somewhere and have a nice quiet drink or a nice meal with somebody and just not be bothered. Or that if I hear somebody calling me, let's say, Mark Dice, then you know it's not somebody who knows you personally, it's somebody who knows you from the internet fame. So I can understand it from that point of view. But I won't go through his blog, or his bio rather, just yet, but it says he was born on the 21st of December 1977, known as Mark Dice, is an American YouTuber, right-wing conservative political commentator, author, activist, and conspiracy theorist. But I might come back to his Wikipedia page in a minute. He did a video today, as I say, and it started off and it was titled Ben Shapiro gags Candace Owens with court order. And the article he's featured here in his video is from the New York Post, who do put a lot of very useful stuff out there. And it says the headline is Daily Wire obtains gag order against Candace Owens despite Ben Shapiro wanting debate, or at least pretending to want to debate. Putting it out there that he does, regardless of whether that's really what he wants. Maybe I'll read a little bit of what I can see on screen here. It says the right-leaning news and commentary site Daily Wire, right-leaning, obtained a gag order against former host Candace Owens. Mark's in the way of the rest of it there. But anyway, claiming he wanted to publicly debate her about... I'll skip that word and then I'll skip the next word according to a report. I'm going to just skip forward past this part and I'm going to go to... Well, actually, it might be useful. I think what would be useful first of all is to just maybe if I can get to Ron Paul. I mean, Ron Paul, he's still on the go and he sounds so gentle and, you know, he sounds so genteel, I suppose. I was trying to look for another word. Such a lovely old fella, but he's still going. And look, I mean, maybe he's been doing the right thing all the time, but he's so maybe unassuming that people, he's not a firebrand that maybe people feel that, well, what's there to listen to, you know? He's just doesn't go hard enough. But look, he says all the strong words just in a soft way. I think it might be useful to listen to something again. This is Mark. He's always great with sourcing things from the past, so that he doesn't have to say it, so you don't have to just believe him. He brings the receipts, as they say. Listen to this little part here, so if we get on to Ron Paul, the greatest president we never had, a lot of people say, and a liberal, a true liberal.
How he literally said that he wanted Hillary Clinton to win in 2016 and beat Donald Trump, or how for 12 or 15 years he's been calling Ron Paul, of all people, an anti-Semite because he didn't want to give aid to Israel or any other country. Or how he was captured on a hot mic, being afraid to call pansexual people weird because he didn't want to lose sponsors. He was going to lose some money if he offended the rainbow people like that. Or how he openly said that Scott Adams was a racist and should have gotten fired, should have lost his syndication deal with Dilbert because he simply said that he preferred to live in a white neighborhood.
I suppose that's not the vital thing. Anyway, you got a bit of a flavour there. I was hoping to avoid the anti-word there just for now. But anyhow, don't know who this Ryan guy is. I doubt it's Ryan Seacrest. I used to hear @Mark Dice talk about Little Ben and I thought he just had personal beef. Then I started listening to Shapiro and was bothered by what he was saying. Mark Dice was and always is 100% correct. Little Ben is a douche. And look, again, if anybody has anything about Mark Dice that they want to say and show like how he's deceptive or disingenuous in some way, I'm all ears. But so far, and you know, for the last while, like Mark's been doing excellent work. And I'm continuously amazed at what he is either able to say or currently getting away with saying. It seems that what he's doing is basically deciding that, I mean, assuming that he doesn't have any private deals in the background or guaranteed ability to stay on YouTube. I'm amazed at what he's been saying. So maybe he's decided he just has to trust in, if he believes in God, if he believes in the Christian God, trust in God that God will protect him. And he's just going to say, as far as he's concerned, to the best of his ability, what the truth is.
Oh, and by the way, did you see this photo? I know it looks like a meme, but this is actually a photo. I posted this on my locals page, which you should join, by the way, by clicking the link in the description below for $5 a month, because that's where you get all the exclusive content. But this is real. This is Elon Musk outside of the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland with his handler, Ben Shapiro. Back in January, after he responded to somebody posting something on Twitter that was deemed anti-Semitic, he went on an apology tour by literally touring the concentration camp.
Right, well, I guess those were kind of the words that I didn't want to get into this particular thing here. So that was the article which I saw on screen there. Cheers, Dr. Crispy. Thanks for the thumbs up there. So when I heard Mark Dice there saying that he went over there with his handler, Ben Shapiro, I mean, I'm still thinking like, he must mean just that as a figure of speech, or as maybe like an exaggerated description of what's happening. But on the other hand, then, I mean, it is making me wonder, what exactly is a handler? And who appoints the handlers? And why do they accept a handler? And even if, I mean, I'm gonna, in case people aren't aware, I'll state it in case you're not thinking of it already. The Kanye and his handler, he was sort of a Canadian, but not a Canadian, if you know what I mean. Pasternak, Hardy Pasternak. So I kind of thought in the same way, like, I mean, why would somebody who's a multi-millionaire just accept this guy coming along and saying, hi, I've been told to be your handler, or I'm called officially your fitness and mental health instructor, but I'm basically going to make sure that you say the right thing, eat the right foods, and do the right thing, and be seen going to the right places and hanging around with the right people. I figure, why would a multi-millionaire, somebody who clearly seems to know his own mind, would go, oh, okay, then yeah, come on in. And I guess it's because people in Hollywood, but not just Hollywood, everybody that's in the public eye understands somehow, I mean, that the lesson was taught to them at some point on their way up the ziggurat or the ladder. That at some point the lesson is made very clear to them. And I guess it would be. I mean, anybody who's worked in a corporation, it's not like they come down and explicitly tell you how it works. But I guess after a few failures and a few metaphorical bloody noses, you kind of get the sense of, I think I understand how things work around here. So again, Elon Musk, then you might think, well, he's much more powerful than Kanye. So you would think, well, he's a multi-billionaire. And a lot of people say that he's the richest person in the world, even more rich than Jeff Bezos or Billy McGates or whatever, And so why would just some guy coming along like little Ben Shapiro, who played the violin there at the outset, why would they just say, oh, hi, Ben. Oh, what are you doing here? Oh, you're my handler. Oh, okay. Oh, good. So you're going to tell me what to do and think and say and where to go? And you're going to say, get in, loser. We're getting on a plane to go to Poland. I mean, doesn't really make sense on the face of it, unless we do accept that nothing about the world that we're told is real, that everybody in the public eye is an actor. And I really mean that, and I guess you know that as well. And again, maybe I'm preaching to the choir here. But that, I mean, it took a while. I feel stupid saying this now because it's so obvious. It kind of took a while for me to realise this. Cheers, Stephen. And thanks for the comment there. Mowing the lawn. Or mowing the yard. Mowing the yard, not mowing the lawn. That's something Israelis do, isn't it? Mowing the yard, but lurking in the background. Appreciate it. Well, what I realised about managers, it applies to everybody in management, but particularly to CEOs, chief executive officers, is that those people don't actually manage the company. They don't make decisions for the company. And largely, they don't actually understand what's going on in the company, but they have a script about the company. They've learned off enough about the various departments. They've learned off by heart enough about some razzmatazz sounding jazz about the year-on-year earnings and the share dividends and what's the new project that some new halo group, like some team is working on that has a lot of the limelight. And that's why they're very close to the PR department, and that's why they have public relations people all around them. And then, I witnessed it internal to a large company that I worked for as well. I witnessed, directors of the various regions, and these were directors who weren't actually on the board of directors, but took their instructions from board of directors. So a lot of times in a company, when they call people directors, even if like they're real big wigs, as it seems, they're not actually people with any power, but they are like the figureheads of the people who want to stay much more anonymous. The kind of people who do sit on the board of directors, not just on one company, but on really most companies that count, pretty much all of the Fortune 500 companies. If you look at the actual board of directors, and it's very easy to do this. Now, some of the time, they try to hide it, especially if they register an aspect of their company as a not-for-profit type thing. But even so, a lot of the time, I guess you can find out because they start boasting about it. I forget. Or that they get awarded prizes for their amazing philanthropy and things like this. Anyway, but there's ways to get around it, because I mean, if you buy even one share of a corporation, then you get a voting email or thing in the post, and it lists the directors because it tells you what they want you to vote for. Anyway, I won't get off into the weeds too much. A lot of the people who are called directors or CEOs are just actors. And the funny thing is, and I'll harken back to, I mean, I guess I could say a bit more to sort of not prove my case essentially, but establish my rationale for that. Doc says, I've been saying this for years, and I think he's probably talking about that. And it's really, what I notice about myself is, and I'll reference Gurdjieff's alarm clocks, that we tend to forget certain realizations and fall back to sleep on certain aspects of our waking up to certain things. And so we need each other to remind ourselves of certain basic facts. And it is like a spell that they put us back to sleep with again and again, over and over. But I'm going to remind you about Elon Musk, and I kind of feel guilty, or not guilty, I feel ashamed or embarrassed for, I don't know how many summers ago it was it 1 or 2, or could it be 3 summers ago, when the Johnny Depp and, what was your one's name? The court trial. It was salacious. In other words, it was something which we all took an unhealthy interest in because it was a good-looking dame. And I'm going to look her up now. Johnny Depp. Amber Heard. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I mean, it comes to me when I I spelled Johnny wrong and Amber there. But yeah, here's a bit of I might as well click a picture over there, because look, even though the more she talked, the less good looking she got from my perspective. It can't be denied that she's a good looking girl, and I'm going to say that I empathize with Elon for making a fool out of himself with her, because I've done that before myself. I have been a fool for a pretty face, and I have allowed myself to be so easily manipulated that it was clear that the woman had either never had any respect for me because she saw me as a mug from the outset, or came to see me that way because I had become so smitten, or had instantly become so smitten. And it seems to me that this is exactly what happened to Elon Musk. During the I think it must have been during the presentation of evidence during the trial of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, where, in case people don't know in the future or in the past, that she had accused Johnny Depp of domestically abusing her, of being physically violent towards her, and I guess she must have said psychologically bullying to her as well. Whereas, in the true style of they always accuse others of what they do themselves, she was really the guilty party and guilty of those charges herself. Whereas it does seem as if Johnny Depp was not. And it more to the fact, it seems like he had actually the patience of a saint. But it seems that after Johnny Depp had eventually sort of said, right, maybe he drinks too much, maybe he took too many illicit substances, but maybe when he realized, even if he hadn't given up the rest of those drugs, he figured that this girl was the most dangerous drug. And I would actually maybe go so far as to say, now that I've just kind of more or less come to say this, women, can be, especially these pretty ones who know and who've realized very early on in their lives how their good looks are so disarming to men and can be used so easily to manipulate people. It's like the story of the Aesop's fable of the, it can be compared to it, the Aesop's fable of the competition between the wind and the sun. Or it's a bit like that you can attract more, what is it, attract more flies or attract more bees with vinegar than honey. Sorry, with honey than vinegar. Anyway, I mean, I suppose, look, with the male and the female, with the male, you might be able to bend somebody to your will with physical brute force. But a woman's allure and charm just bypasses the whole idea of having to physically overpower anybody to get them to do what they want to do. And even then, they'll be doing it with great resistance. They'll be doing whatever you want them to do. Even if they're not resisting you now, they'll be doing it with resentment, and they'll be plotting how they can turn around the situation at some point when your guard is down. Whereas the feminine quality, and maybe we can further extrapolate from this and say that there might be a whole group of people that has this same quality, that they don't force you to do something physically. They coerce you and cajole you and trick you, really, into doing what they want by means of deception. By means of their wiles, they beguile you. And men can become the beguiled. And Elon Musk seems to have been extremely beguiled by this woman, because some of his text messages to her were read out and her text messages back. And she didn't even seem to need to be polite or even ask for his help. But Elon was saying, "Oh no, have you been domestically abused, or is somebody bullying you?" Meaning Johnny Depp. "Oh, let me help you. What do you need money? Could you do with an extra million if I wired you $1 million, or would 10 million be enough to help you with your legal case?" This kind of thing. Maybe I've gotten the figures slightly wrong, but that was more or less what he was saying. And reading that, of course, I mean, I think most of Gen Z would probably look at that, and the first term that would be coming to their minds would be, "Oh, he is he's a pushover, he's a wimp, and he's totally wrapped around her little finger." And she didn't obviously respect him, because the text messages back was kind of like, again, I'm paraphrasing heavily here because she didn't say this, but it seemed to me from reading it that the response she had to him was something along the lines of, "If I want your money, I'll ask for it," kind of thing. A simp. Thanks very much, Stephen. It's weird how those words escaped me, and I knew it was something like that, but then I was afraid I was going to say something beginning with P that rhymed with that, and I knew that wasn't right. Now, I know I've gone off on a tangent, but probably I needed to do that in order to kind of get away from the topic that I really can't talk about on YouTube. And I'll say this now, I was hoping to invite people to another stream that I'll set up after this on Odyssey. And Stephen there says he's simping for her. We are in a simpocalypse 2024. Yeah, a simpocalypse. I like that. But look, I think the reason that it was not just a useful deviation to get away from that other photograph of Elon and Ben outside a certain place that has a very famous bit of writing over its gate. Because I really need to talk about that, but it'll have to be in a stream on Odyssey, which, as I say, I'll set up after 5 minutes after I finish on this, if anybody wants to come over and listen to things that I don't want to talk about just yet on YouTube too often, because I want to be able to examine certain aspects of those kind of things without getting right into those kind of anti-words, and you know the way it is. But I think the most instructive thing should be to us is that it wouldn't matter if we worked hard and scrimped and saved and also got extremely lucky and then made all the right connections. We would oftentimes be our own worst enemy. That a pretty face like that could be the undoing of it all. And also, we would meet at some point the kind of ceiling that it is not necessarily a glass ceiling that the women talk about, but they might be identifying a barrier that's there that cannot be directly pointed to, but you kind of know it once you keep hitting it. And they have identified it in far too oblique or opaque a way. Maybe they were right, but for the wrong reasons, like everybody seems to be. That they weren't specific enough. They thought it was just men that were keeping a glass ceiling there. Maybe it needs to be a lot more specific than that. Anyway, I think that you would come up against this kind of ceiling. But as far as the women aspect of it then, those people would be able to use these kind of women to go after you. And say, wow, I never noticed how good looking and smart you were until you became so successful. You know? I mean, I never heard of you until now. If I had heard of you, of course I would have loved you the moment I clapped eyes on you. But now that you're a CEO and you're quite famous and you're extremely rich and you're well-travelled and you've got all these ways of getting about, you've got this luxurious, sophisticated, debonair lifestyle, I really, I think I find you very attractive. But I find you so attractive for your natural good looks and your charisma that you always had. It's just that I wasn't aware of you before your fame. Otherwise, I would have been just as attracted to you as I am now. And, you know, as I say, that's the kind of thing I have fallen for. And all men are susceptible to that, and you really have to be extremely mentally disciplined not to fall for that. Not that I ever became sophisticated and debonair, you know. But what I'll say is that I know that sometimes women, and of course you can kind of assist it a bit, sometimes when women get an idea about you, that they can think that you're, he's, what's the word for it, like, sophisticated, or he's got some cachet, that kind of thing. And so they think you're, to put it in teenage terms, they think you're cooler than you really are. And then, of course, it's not as if you try to immediately say, oh, no, I'm not cool at all. No, wait till you see how not cool I am. But anyway, as well as coming across simultaneously women like this and men who would use them. I mean, men like sort of, the ones like, how can I say this? Steinfree, Pepto-Bismol, you know the one I'm talking about. And all that sort of thing that we suspect might have been paid to by the video convention of 2020, that they might have said, right, bring down the curtain on that by changing the scenery to this new problem. There's Logan Garville, and he says, greetings, Logan. So, it doesn't matter if you get to become a billionaire. You can be your own worst enemy. You can fall for the most obvious of tricks, but they're as tricks as old as time. And also, even if he has multi-billions, there are apparently still people who can come to him and who can say, hello, why don't you and Ben take a trip over to Europe there, to Poland specifically? Because it doesn't seem to us that you're taking all this anti-dentism seriously enough that we see on your platform X. And normally, like, we'd have to say, like, could you imagine the nerve of them? And you would imagine that Elon would say, like, who do you think you are telling me where I need to go? I'm a busy CEO here. But you see, he isn't a busy CEO. He is literally an actor on the stage, on the world stage. And in mentioning this woman, Amber Heard, she also is an actress. They're not in different fields. They're in the same profession. That's why he's able to hang around with her. They're in the same business. So it's not like, oh, she's an actress, but he's a high-flying businessman. No, they're all actors. Or they're all in the same business, whatever you want to call the business. And that business is creating, well, manufacturing consent by creating a paradigm for whatever it is that they, the controllers of this earth, want us to believe at any particular time. But they are very, very clever. They weave intricate webs. Hence the weaving spiders, come ye not here, at the entrance to the you-know-where grove. Because what they've been doing for every generation, and they pass the mantle and they pass the baton from generation to generation, and they bring these people up. like I showed, and maybe it's worth another play because you mightn't have got it at the beginning there if you joined. It might be worth another quick play. They passed the baton, the figurative sort of parcel of here's what we've done so far, we've brought you up to speed, and now you run with it. And that's, by the way, part of the reason why I'm incensed that my parents, who were pretty clued in, just said, look, just be a good boy, study hard, get a good job, and just keep the head down. But that wasn't good enough, and I was lazy, so I didn't, you know. And if they had told me that there are other people who are making very sure that they appraise everybody on exactly where all the pieces are on the chessboard, who's made what moves so far and why, which pieces can't move, which other pieces are trapped, which other pieces are essentially, you know, they're on the board but unable to move because something else is basically putting it in check, i.e. blackmail. But that if that blackmail ever becomes moot, like that somebody makes whatever dirt they've got on them be publicly acceptable, you know, well then it'll no longer be leverage, this kind of thing. So they've told them exactly how all the pieces move on the chessboard, how they moved in the past, and now they're going to suggest some moves, and then they're going to go, right, so now you've done enough practice, now you inherit the rest of the earth from now on. Well, my parents didn't, they just said, oh, listen, don't worry about chessboards, just be a good boy. Figuratively speaking, you know. And I guess maybe they thought like that I was just too lazy, too unfocused, or not intelligent enough to get it anyway. And maybe they would have been right. that I didn't get it, or didn't start getting it until too late, until it started affecting me. And unfortunately, that's only, and I've, you know, noticed that from just rereading a bit about George Orwell's life there today on Wikipedia. It now seems to me, and another fellow called Arthur Koestler, it seems to me that a lot of these people who we might say have written about these kind of things, but they didn't realize until too late, and it was in their dying breaths pretty much, that they were writing their books which were warnings to the rest of us. But unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier today in the video that I put out about 1984, I thought that it was just, well, that's what happened in Russia, and, you know, guys, you got to be careful because it could happen anywhere. And when 1984, the year, came around, I went, well, our TVs don't have cameras in them, so I guess he was wrong. And politicians just are trying to do the right thing and try to make our countries better. It's just the other party keeps getting in their way. You know, and most people are stuck in that paradigm still. The two-party paradigm.